all I ever wanted was to make movies. That's all I ever wanted. I wanted to be like Steven Spielberg, George Lucas. I wanted to make good films. I thought if I went to film school, I could learn all those things, tell a good story, and the audience would love it. I was happy for the people who won the Academy Awards. I would watch it with excitement, and I'd be glad with them. I mean, even if my film didn't get nominated, it'd still be an honor just to be there. But I'm not there. I'm nowhere close to being there. I'm here. So I looked back and asked myself, how did I get here? As you can see from the title above me, I am the angry film student. Well, technically I've already graduated, so I'm not a student anymore, but an alumni. If that word has any meaning. About my videos, yeah, I tend to jump cut a lot, and you know, a lot of film professors tend for you not to use jump cutting as an editing tool. But since those French New Wave films came out, jump cutting is cool, so I don't care. One, there's a lot of crap rattling around up here because it's been so long since I've been in film school. Two, I'm not doing this for a grade. This is going on the internet. It's people can comment, say they hate it or like it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't care. Yeah, jump cuts. Getting into the film industry is harder than you think. Much harder than I thought. I thought I would go to a film school to get in, How to choose the right school, something that was nearby. I did not want to go to LA. No LA. Other side of the country for me. I live in Georgia. So, I found a school. Now, I'm not going to mention any names or any school names. Not for their protection. Anyway. Just don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Yeah. There's one little problem with this particular college. It was an art school. My first mistake. A private college. I don't see why. The problem with this art school is that they force you to take art classes. I actually remember my first phone call to the admissions office and asking them, why do I have to take art classes when I want to major in film? How does painting and drawing nude people supposed to help me with film? How does that work? I mean, and the admissions person answered me by saying, well, that's part of the core curriculum. That's like an educational way of saying, we want all your money. Okay, so so I said, oh, okay, I guess I'll play ball. Sign me up. Sign me up. The proverbial nail in my coffin. Because I was a naive, stupid kid, and I decided to attend this college. I started in the spring of 2007. First of all, the dorms I was moving into. When you look at the brochure, the dorms looked good. I mean, they had an outside picture, they had an inside picture, and it looked good. It looked, well, for the price, I guess this is okay. But you got to remember, these art school people, they're real good with Photoshop. So I get there. My parents are loading me in and everything, and we're moving all my stuff in the dorms. Crappy. The ventilation system. The dorm room was a box. It was a box. It was a concrete box that you could hear through. That was the dorm. And I looked at the price, and I'm like, what? This is ridiculous. There was parents down the hall screaming, like other kids' parents screaming at the room assistants, RAs, whatever they're called, the sheriffs of the dorms, saying how crappy the dorms were and everything. And I agree with them. And it was bad, yeah, but I was like, yeah, well, I want to be a filmmaker. I can take this. It's okay. Biting another bullet, because I want to be a filmmaker. So, I get through the first few days. We start going to class. I don't have any film classes yet. I went through a year of artsy-fartsy classes. 2D design, drawing 1, 2, and life drawing, whatever. Painting. But in my second quarter, it was a quarter system, not a semester system. In my second quarter, I got to take my first film class, and it was an introduction to video production. It was fun. I liked making movies. I mean, it was so much fun, more fun than I thought it would be. Writing a script and, the directions and everything, and directing the actors. And the actors were friends of mine. I started making films, I started making friends right off the bat. It was great. I'm learning how to use these medium grade cameras, and they're not too heavy, and I thought this is great. Which brings me to another monster, the cage. The cage is this little place where you rent the film equipment, and of course the professor taught us how to do all that. The problem with the cage is the freshmen. Now I transferred, so I was a sophomore when I started out. The problem was the freshmen would break the film equipment. And every time someone that worked at the cage would check the equipment, make sure it's okay when the film students brought it back, sometimes they'd overlook certain damages. And then you would rent the equipment, you being like a sophomore or above, and we'd bring it back after we were done, and they would try to accuse us of breaking it. So that's why we had to check our film equipment every time. Every time. You can't not check your equipment. You got to check it when you rent it out and when you're returning it. You got to make sure that everything was in the right condition the way it was and everything. Because when you bring it back, something a freshman did that the cage people overlooked, you bring it back and boom, they try to pin the charge on you. Luckily, that never happened to me. I learned that lesson, early on. I was told about it, but whew, dodged a bullet, but still biting the bullet at the same time. Quarter by quarter went by, which is, pretty much you get 10 weeks to do 3 classes at a time. And the quarter system, it's 4 times a year, but most people skipped summer. I took 3 classes per quarter, and I got more and more into film. I got the core curriculum out of the way. By that time, 2008 rolled around. 2008, of course, was the time when the second Great Recession hit. Well, I don't know if you can call it the second Great Recession, but yeah, the economy started to go downhill. And the thing about going to this college, it was very expensive, I'm not going to lie. But I borrowed money. My second big mistake about going to film school. Borrowing a crap load of money. See, the thing is, I had Hope Scholarship going through my previous college. And Hope Scholarship pretty much gave me a free ride at my community college I went to. And a lot of my credits transferred over and everything. But Hope Scholarship in Georgia. It was easy to get when I was in high school. All you have to do was keep a 3.0 GPA or higher, and that's what I did. And it was simple. You know, a lot of people got into college, and it was great. Those are great years from 2005, 6, and 7, you know. But because this art school I was going to was a private art school, so I don't know what that means, Hope only paid for 10% of the tuition. So I ended up borrowing a lot of money from student loans. I was at that art school for 3 years. And 2008 is when that second Great Recession hit. That was fun. That's when I started to realize student loans, it might not work out too well. But what did I know? I was a stupid kid at the time. And I was still enjoying my film classes. I took screenwriting, advanced screenwriting, a bunch of film elective classes, you know, the extra classes. You know, working my way up to the final project. And I made a few other films, and all my films are comedies pretty much. I like comedies. They're good, they're cheap. And that's when I thought when I got to those film classes, I would be out of the BS area. No. I get more BS. There was this one teacher. I'm trying to remember the name of the class. It was a class about studying the meaning of a scene in a movie and how it relates to a movie as a whole. And it's this really subjective stuff, the internal meaning. The kind of thing you look at a scene and read too much into it. That was the class. And a lot of the scenes we saw, they didn't have complex meanings, but the professor would always cook up these weird explanations for why the scene meant what it meant. It's hard to explain. Her mind was like trying to follow a ball of yarn. It just, it's a ball of yarn. You can't, you can try to untangle it, but you're just going to get in a bigger and bigger mess when you try to untangle it. It's ridiculous. And maybe I just didn't get it. I knew a lot of students in that class, share my frustration on that they didn't understand what the hell she was talking about. There was one student that cooked up this total BS explanation as to what this scene meant. Each student had to pick their own scene from a different movie and present it to the class. And, every week there'd be a certain topic we'd have to go over. Like subtext. What was the other stuff? It was subtext, emotion, timing, impact, stuff like that. And this one particular assignment, this one student came up with the most BS explanation I've ever heard. I can't remember it word for word, but what I do remember is that it was stupid, and the professor bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. It's like, oh, that's what it means, yes, and da-da-da. And of course she puts her own spin on it. And that was the whole problem with that class. It was subjective, meaning the professor could have her own opinion about a scene, and if that scene has more than one meaning, and you go with the other meaning instead of her meaning, oh no, you don't, no. You have to redo this assignment. You have to choose another scene from another movie and do hours of research into it and try to figure out what the scene is saying. And then we get to, in the final year, the senior projects. Senior project is the film you make in the film department so that you can graduate from this college. It takes up 3 quarters, and most people do fall, winter, and spring, but I decided to offset it because the problem with shooting your film in winter, which is senior 2, is that's the production time. Senior 1 was pre-production, senior 2 was the main production when you actually film the movie, then senior 3 was post-production when you edit it and do all that other stuff. Anyway. So, problem with senior 2, shooting in the winter, is that is when everybody else shoots their film in senior 2. I mean, there was 1 year before the year I started filming my film that 80 films were being made. And there was 100 something students, senior students at the time in the film department. And that tells you something right there. 80 films out of 100 film students in senior class. That means that there's 80 people that want to do their own movie, while the other 20 are just kind of spread out, trying to do as many films as they could. And a lot of those 80 films, let's say probably about 20 of them, 10 or 20 of them, didn't get made because there wasn't enough people. That was the big problem with the film department. They had all these kids wanted to do their own films, but because they all wanted to direct, there wasn't enough editors, DPs, writers to go around. I mean, so that means that a lot of these directors, the ones that want to make their own films, would have to write and produce theirs as well. A triple threat. Triple threat is writing, directing, and producing. But it's a tough job. Whew. I mean, that's what I ended up doing in my film. I had a producer, and she was good. I liked her. She was nice, and she was very businesslike and everything. But I still ended up doing a good bit of producing too. So I was really working through it, you know. So I decided to do the smart thing. I started pre-production in winter instead of fall. That way it would offset myself from all the other films being made in winter. So production was actually in spring for me, and about 20 other films were being made as well. Instead of just, 80 like there was winter. But that presented another problem. Since the last quarter of the year would be summer, that would mean that my senior 3, post-production, editing, and all other visual effects stuff for my film, would be in summer. There's not a lot of people at that college during summer. Which presented a problem, but I didn't want to have to compete with all those films being shot in the winter. So, in the end, I think it was a wise decision. Now, this brings me to another point. The one thing that destroys student films almost more than anything else are flakes. Urban Dictionary has a brilliant definition for the term flake. A useless, shady, deceitful person who is so unreliable and selfish they cause you much anger and frustration. A flake's only agenda is what they want to do. They have a weak character, often the products of bad parenting or spoiling their kids. A flake will make plans, never attend, and give no reason for their absence, even after they spent hours calling, texting, or emailing you. You can never rely on a flake. That definition hits the nail on the head. I remember this one film. My old roommate was doing his final project to graduate, and he had this one guy that's acting in this film as the main character, and the day before the first day of shooting, this actor calls in and says, "Oh man, I can't act in your film tomorrow, I'm sick, oh gosh." And so, naturally, my older roommate, he freaked out, and he had to rewrite the entire script. He got one of his other friends to do the main role, and he rewrote the script overnight. He didn't get any sleep at all, pretty much. And so the next day came around, and we did okay. We got through the first day of shooting. On the second day of shooting, a friend of my old roommate actually contacts him and says, "Oh, hey, didn't you have that one guy, the so-and-so, that was going to act in your film?" And my old roommate said, "Oh, yeah, but he called in sick. He wouldn't be able to make it this, week or whatever." And his friend on the phone says, "Oh, that's not true. He's not sick. He's acting on this other film right now. I see him. He's right over there." The actor that my old roommate had flaked on his film to do some other film. He lied to him over the phone. Gosh, so stupid. Yeah, that hurts a student film right there. I mean, if a crew member flakes, yeah, it's damaging because you have one less guy to help you, or girl. But when it's an actor flaking on your film, that is bad. I'm trying to remember another example. There's so many. I saw it happen so many times. Student films are destroyed by this. I mean, even the final projects to graduate, it's devastating if more than one person flakes on the film. Because even if it's like a really special position, like a producer or the editor, or one of the bigger positions in the crew, it's damaging to your film. And sometimes if you're the director and it's your baby, it's your film, you have to take over that position. I mean, there are some directors, poor people, they just had their crews just walk out on them on the last second. And it would be like the director, the writer, the DP, but like no crew members to help move equipment or anything. And it was sad, and it happened a lot. Because the thing about these projects in film school, there is no legally binding document that holds crew members to your student projects. So you're pretty much gambling. You just have to trust total strangers. I mean, yeah, you get to know them in class, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be like your best buddies and they're going to stick with you till the end. Luckily, I had a decent senior project. I mean, nobody really flaked out. Not until later, that is. Anyway, the rules for the senior projects are as this. You have 7 days to shoot this project. And some kids would do from Sunday to Saturday, a week long. But most kids would do it the smart way. They do it on the weekends to avoid getting in trouble with the classes. Because, a lot of your crew might have classes Monday through Thursday. And that would be bad because they wouldn't show up. So, most senior projects would shoot during the weekends, 2 corresponding weekends. And that's what I ended up doing. Now, I had this cool idea for a senior project. It was going to be a time travel thriller. I wanted it to be like one of Alfred Hitchcock's films, kind of. And I didn't exactly get it shot the exact way Hitchcock would have, but it was Hitchcock inspired. So I wrote the script and everything, and I was having fun doing it too. I mean, I only had to revise it a couple of times, and I had it to a good point. Oh, man. Pre-production is bliss. I mean, pre-production is so much fun. I mean, you get in there and you're writing your script and you're like, oh, this is so cool. That's 85% of your film is pre-production because you're planning everything and everything has to be planned out. Everything, you gotta have your days set up, your shot list made, the script. But you gotta keep in mind how much money you're gonna spend on your budget. You can't have a car exploding and all this other stuff unless you have tens of thousands of dollars to pull that off. Luckily, I did that with much, much less than tens of thousands of dollars. Actually, it was way less than $10,000. But I saved up a lot of money, and I was able to pull it off. Getting your crew together in pre-production is so much fun as well. I mean, it's like when the A-Team theme is playing. Dun, 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 dun. You got your director of photography, you got your producer, you've got your key grip, you got your other grips, you got your script supervisor. You're getting all the crew members together, and it feels like you're putting together a bank heist team, like those old bank heist movies, like The Italian Job and other stuff like that. I mean, it was so much fun. There's a rush of energy when you get the crew together, and it gets you excited to make your film. But it's just bliss. Because your film might be 85% pre-production, like the professor said. But once you get into shooting, you face a myriad of other problems. Oh boy. So, I took the 2-weekend approach, 2 corresponding weekends. One weekend, another weekend in April. I was shooting mine towards the beginning of the quarter, so that way it wouldn't be too busy, because if you wait till after midterms to shoot your film, your crew, which is aka other students, are going to have a hard time attending your shooting dates. Because, we gotta study! Oh, yeah, right, they slack off half the time anyway, film students do. So, 2 corresponding weekends we start shooting. The first weekend, first day of shooting actually goes pretty well, and it had a lot of shots for this scene. And we got the shots done, and I receive an email at the end of the day's shooting. An email from this locations supervisor. Now this is a location specialist position in the main building. Not the film building, but the film commission office. And this guy, he was the one responsible for talking to the students about where they want to shoot, getting location permits and stuff like that. Talk about flakes. The location specialist, he was a nice guy. You know, he very straightforward, he's very kind and everything. His problem is he wouldn't get things done. I don't know how the guy had the job in the first place. He was the only location specialist. And somehow he was able to keep his job when he would lose, he wouldn't put through film location permits on time. At all. I mean, yeah, most of the films, yeah, he got through, but for some reason, several films, he never would get the location permit set up and everything. And I had heard about it, and I was like, oh no, I hope he doesn't do that in my film. And he did. We got that one location for the first day of shooting. But he sends me an email at the end of the first shooting day saying that he was not able to get a certain shooting location I needed for the next weekend. Woo! I was overjoyed to hear that. So, we had a decision to make. My producer suggested, to hell with the location specialist. Let's go ahead and shoot at that particular location anyway. So the second weekend of shooting, we tried to shoot there anyway, even without the location permission. And it was going pretty well the first hour, but then some local businesses nearby called the film commission and said we were filming there. I know we shouldn't have been shooting there. I know. But it was the location specialist's responsibility to get us that location. I gave him a month's warning to get that done, and he didn't get it done. And he doesn't work for the school, he works for the city. What the hell? So, of course, local business called us in. We got kicked off the location, but we shot this very same place the next day. Why? Because it was a Saturday and the film commission office was closed. Yes! Booyah! They made a phone call and it went nowhere. Yep, so we shot there anyway. You know, feels good to be a rebel, you know? I mean, it's guerrilla filmmaking. I never thought I'd be doing it on a student project, but hey, first time for everything, right? And then the final day of shooting came. Final day. The most important day. The day we were supposed to shoot at the set. Let me rewind the clock a little ways. I skipped something. Back in pre-production, our professors were telling us about this merger that was going on between the film department and the performing arts department. Performing arts department also included building sets for their plays, their theater productions. So, naturally, we were ecstatic. We were like, hey, we can get the theater students to help us build these sets for our films. That's a great idea. This is a great partnership. I mean, taking two different departments, putting them together. I mean, theater and film, this is going to be good, you know? We're going to build these sets and it's going to be awesome. So, it wasn't awesome. What this professor was telling us turned out to be total crap. Turns out the merger didn't really work. But I didn't know that was going to happen, so I went ahead and said, let's build a little set. You know, not very big, you know, just 10 feet wide plywood. It was going to be a scene on a clock tower. And I wanted the actors to actually interact with some sort of set piece without using an actual building, because, you know, we weren't taught how to do green screen area work in the outdoors, only indoors. So we rented a studio that was not owned by the college. That scene ended up taking half my budget. Just give me this. This is the most painful part of the shoot. The final day of shooting. The set never got finished in time. Do you know why? Because the theater students didn't hold up their part of the bargain. It turns out, and I talked to one of the theater students about why there wasn't any collaboration happening between the theater department and the film department. It's because the theater professors had been telling their students it's not good to work with film people. Not good at all. They had been telling their students not to work with us, even though there was supposed to be this collaboration between the two departments. I was just wanting to use some resources. And I thought, you know, since this thing, I thought this collaboration was going to happen, I thought, well, hey, let's have them help me build a set. I even helped build it. But we didn't get any theater students to help us now, did we? Basically had this wooden plywood wall and the scaffold in this green screen room at this local studio. What do you know? Almost half the crew that had been helping me the previous weekend didn't show up. Oh, I got homework to do. I got work to do. See what I mean about no legally binding documents? The hell was I thinking? You know, alright, I do blame myself, partially, for biting off more than I could chew, but this short film, even though it was going to be 12 minutes long, it was my dream to make it. You know, you don't know how heartbreaking it is to want to make this awesome movie, this idea in your head, and then it almost nearly fails because the people that were supposed to be working with you didn't show up on the most important day of filming. And it was like everyone was failing. And because they were failing to show up and failing to help me finish this movie, caused me to almost fail. So, we get all the shots done. The plywood set with no paint or anything on it to make it look like a clock tower wall. And that's when post-production came in afterwards. Now, granted, during production, Senior 2, after I got my film done shooting, that was only halfway through the quarter. So I only had one other class to worry about since my senior project was done shooting. During that time, I was just in power down mode. You know, I was just like, after the film was done. So, yay! I was pooped, to say the least. I mean, for weeks, I just, you know, I was just tired. So, I just pretty much rested. I mean, I attended my other class, got that project done, which is a short video project thing. And then summer rolled around. Senior 3, post-production, when the editing and the visual effects kicks in. Now, since mine was a time travel science fiction thriller. I had visual effects lined up for it. And I had a visual effects team put together and everything. And then guess what happens? I'll give you a hint. Flake. That's another thing. You have this team of people you rely on. This time in post-production. They're not on the set. They make computer effects, right? One by one, the visual effects team started dropping out. Not because of the amount of the workload, but because we've got other projects to do. Then why did you sign on to my project? Why did you sign on to work on my film when you didn't think ahead that you might have other projects? You couldn't have told me ahead of time, oh, I think I'll be too busy at these other more advanced classes I'm taking. What is that? Oh. Ticked me off. So eventually, I ended up having to do some of the visual effects work. And I also did sound editing because I couldn't get a post-production sound supervisor. So I ended up being not only post-production sound, I was the director, the writer, ended up doing almost most of the producing. Let's see what else. I did the music. I bought music software and a MIDI keyboard. Let's see, did I have everything? No. All right, 5 positions I filled on a short film. Now I know short film is still a lot of work, and I had 5 positions so far. It's music, director, writer, producer, post sound. What else was I? I know there's 2 other positions I ended up filling. Talk about a heavy workload. Let's see. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, I had a lot on my plate. And still, the whole film was edited together. But since most of the visual effects team dropped out on me, except for one person, eventually he didn't get finished. Had to work on his own stuff. And I understand that. He had a lot on his plate too, and I appreciate his input and his help. He was also my roommate. But he was right. I bit off more than I could chew. The visual effects involved rotoscoping. You know the lightsaber effects in Star Wars? Or how they make the sword look like it's a laser sword? That's rotoscoping. It's a very difficult process in visual effects. Well, not necessarily difficult, but very time-consuming. So the visual effects on my film didn't get done. But I had an edited film put together. I submitted it to the post-production teacher in Senior 3. And my film passed, of course. I got 2 A's and a B for all 3 senior classes. So, which pretty much is an A average. I graduated cum laude in 2010 at the end of summer. But the problem is this. Even though I graduated cum laude, which is above 3.5 GPA, which is still considered good, not 4.0, but I was fine. The problem was, because my film didn't have finished visual effects, it wouldn't be able to be accepted into film festivals. And that's the ticket. If you're taking the writing directing track to graduate, you're saying you want to be a writer and director. That short film is your baby. That's what you show to the film festivals to show that, hey, I want to be a filmmaker. I can be a director, you know? But because my film wasn't technically finished, it was stillborn. A stillborn child. Couldn't go anywhere. So I went home. And I rested again. Because even though post-production was the only class I was taking during the summer, it was still tiring. Because I tried to work on those visual effects so hard, but I wasn't a visual effects guy. I mean, I had help from my roommate who was in visual effects, but it didn't go, you know? It just couldn't get it done in time for the visual effects. So I went back home. My roommate stayed on for a few more years. I only had an undergraduate's degree. And then, after several months, the student loan came into play. Started having to pay him back. That's a whole other monster. Debt. There's nothing worse than getting out of college and not being able to get a job. And then the student loan payments start kicking in. They start off small. They get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. They eventually stopped getting bigger. So, now we're halfway through 2013 almost. Still paying those student loans back. You don't know. You may know, but you don't know how terrible it is to know that you have tens of thousands of dollars of student loans to pay back. And I tried to get film jobs. I mean, I got some side projects here and there, you know, little independent stuff. Because during this time, when I was in college, 2009, 2010, a lot of film stuff started to come to Georgia. All these production studios started moving in, building studios here and there around Atlanta, and they still are now, today. But trying to get your resume through to them and talking to them, that's a whole different story. And you want to know the most infuriating part of all this? Over a year after I graduated, I was able to get in contact with somebody who was going to be working on this feature-length independent film. And it was filming near where I lived. So I get on board with this film, and I started mingling with the crew, and I asked them, how did they get into the film industry? And not to my surprise at all, they said that they never went to film school. One of them worked his way up through being an extra, made the contact who was making this film. Another one just broke his way in. But what really kind of shocked me was when I told them what I had been through, that I had been to film school, and their reaction was like, "You went to film school? Why?" Whoa! Why'd you go to film school? Man, what? It's useless. It's useless. Film school is stupid. I learned a lot of technical stuff. Yeah, I learned technical stuff. But storytelling, there's a few professors that, you know, were gung-ho with storytelling and character. But, I mean, most of them were technical. And here are these guys on this film who are not in debt, are having a good time working on this film. And then here's poor little old me, who borrowed tens of thousands of dollars to go to this film school. And I'm in so much debt. Not having fun. I'm just glad that I was able to work on this film. I'm going to end this video by saying this. For any of you outgoing high school students, think about choosing a college. You want to do something filmsy. Go to a college with, a small film program. But don't ever go to a film school, because most of them are going to be crap anyway. You might get lucky with one or two of them, but overall, just save yourself the money and the trouble. Don't go to film school, especially the one I went to. And I've given you several clues as to what that school is. Don't go. Don't be like me. Save up some money and get yourself a decent camera and start out, as like a videographer, or just get experience making your own films, watch other films and practice their techniques. Buy some books from Barnes & Noble about screenwriting and camera work and directing and acting and stuff like that. Don't waste your time going to these film schools, because they don't work. Sure, some of them may, like I said, some of them may work for you, but don't waste your time. I can't stress that enough. Don't waste your time. Well, I'm running behind everybody else that's younger than me. You don't know how angry that makes me, that I'm falling behind and I'm working a crappy day job, trying to pay off my student loans, barely scraping by. But here's all these kids, woohoo, making films. Woohoo. And that's the end of part 1. Good evening.
I don't want to set the world on